Today we will investigate a stovetop to observe the transformation of electrical energy into heat. We will record data to provide evidence that electrical energy is being transformed into heat. Pot 1 control, no heat, 0 minutes, 23 degrees Celsius. I'm going to start the timer. Remember, we're keeping the stove off for this first control run. This one's going to have no heat added to it. So you can see the temperature on the thermometer is 23 degrees Celsius. Here I'm going to go ahead and speed the clock up, but I'm going to keep the video running so that you can see what happens throughout the entire investigation. After 1 minute, pot number 1 is 23 degrees Celsius. Record that in your workbook. After 2 minutes, pot 1 is 23 degrees Celsius. Go ahead and record that in your workbook. After 3 minutes, pot 1 is 23 degrees Celsius. Go ahead and record that in your workbook. After 4 minutes, pot 1 is 23 degrees Celsius. Record that in your workbook. We've completed pot 1, our control, and we're ready to move on to pot number 2, low heat. I'm going to go ahead and turn the stove on to low heat. Start the timer. I've got the heat on low. And now we'll begin our observations. This is pot 2, low heat. After 1 minute, pot 2 is 23 degrees Celsius. Go ahead and record that in your workbook. After 2 minutes, pot 2 is 23 degrees Celsius. Go ahead and record that in your workbook. After 3 minutes, pot 2 has risen to 24 degrees Celsius. Go ahead and record that in your workbook. After 4 minutes, pot 2 is at 24 degrees Celsius. Go ahead and record that in your workbook. Here I'll switch over now to pot 3 at high heat with new water starting again at 23 degrees Celsius. We're starting with fresh new water. This time we'll turn the stove all the way up to high heat. We were on low. Now we'll turn it up to high. I've skipped ahead 1 minute. After 1 minute, pot 3 on high heat is at 28 degrees Celsius. Go ahead and record that in your workbook. After 2 minutes at high heat, pot 3 remains at 28 degrees Celsius. Record that in your workbook. After 3 minutes, we observe a temperature of 46 degrees Celsius for pot 3. Record that in your workbook. After 4 minutes, we observe a temperature of 58 degrees Celsius for pot 3 on high heat. Record that in your workbook.